Hey guys, I'm going to be telling you about the new Netflix series called Locke and Key and everything you need to know before getting to watch it.
Whatever you think you understand about those keys, you don't.
So the Locke and Key series is actually based on a comic book that started in 2008. It was created by a guy named Joe Hill, aka Joseph Hillstrom King, who is the son of a famous horror author, Stephen King. He's used the pen name so that he can kind of go off on his own and really tell his own stories, be his own man. So it's been a long road for this TV show to be produced. There's actually a number of pilots that were kind of done before this. Fox made a pilot back in 2010. Hulu attempted to do a pilot series for it, and there was even actually a movie that was in the production stages of it to be done. But Netflix acquired the rights about 2 years ago and finally kind of coming out with this. So the 12-year journey of this comic to being finally out into a TV show is finally here, and it releases on Friday, February 7th on Netflix. The comic books actually started out with a series in where it's now been collected into 6 trade paperbacks, kind of telling this whole story of Locke and Key. So one of the really interesting things with Locke and Key is that because it's a comic book adaptation into TV show, it's very similar to something of like what AMC did with The Walking Dead. It's actually almost a similar timeline of where, you know, I guess for Walking Dead it was about 8 years or so before they started and launched into a TV show with that. I think Netflix really hopes that this will be something of where it'll be as big of a hit, if not bigger than something like The Walking Dead. And much like The Walking Dead, there's going to be some differences. One of the big differences right from the get-go is that actually the first trade paperback in Locke and Key is actually called Welcome to Lovecraft. Lovecraft is a town in Massachusetts where the Locke family kind of goes back over there. In the new Netflix TV show, they've actually changed the name of that from Lovecraft to Matheson. And for those of you who kind of are book readers and such, Lovecraft is obviously the H.P. Lovecraft kind of story writer, author of where he kind of came up with the Cthulhu mythos. And Matheson is actually also another book writer, author. He wrote I Am Legend as well as a bunch of other books, but that's kind of the one of the big changes that they've had in this. Now, Matheson, or Lovecraft, is a coastal town out near Boston in Massachusetts. Joe Hill actually made the change because of a lot of the revelations that have come up about H.P. Lovecraft and his life. So Matheson is not where the story begins. The story actually begins over in California, and it begins with the Locke family. Rendell and his wife Nina have 3 kids, Tyler, Kinsley, and Bodie. The father is Rendell Locke. He gets brutally murdered. Upon his death, Nina decides to take the 3 kids back over to Rendell's hometown of Matheson. And they decide to go live in the house that Rendell kind of grew up in, the house that's been kind of in this Locke family for generations, called Key House. Living out there in Key House currently is Rendell's younger brother named Duncan, and he kind of doesn't want to deal with the house anymore. He actually doesn't really typically live there. He lives over more closer to Boston, but he's been there kind of taking care of the house in Rendell's absence. The main characters of the Locke family are all kind of really interesting characters. So Rendell is actually a guidance counselor in a high school that his kids, Tyler and Kinsley, currently go to. After Rendell's death, Nina is kind of spiraling through life. She's going through a bit of depression, an alcoholic, and she's struggling to just kind of bring her kids and raise her kids in the aftermath of her husband's death. Tyler Locke seems like kind of a jock kind of personality, and where he's kind of going through some internal struggle with what has gone on with his father's death. And you get to see a big kind of character change and development upon his life throughout both the comic book series and hopefully what they're showing for the Netflix series. Although I kind of feel like the character that they cast, or the actor that they cast in the Netflix show, doesn't really look exactly the same as what I pictured and envisioned from the comic book series. We'll see how that goes. Kinsley Locke, she starts out in the comic book series, she starts out with kind of dreadlocks, and she kind of changes over the course of what happens through her father's death, and as they move over to Lovecraft or Matheson, Massachusetts. It'll be really interesting to see of how they develop her character. The actress for that seems kind of spot on, but I am interested to see if they kind of initially have her with all the different kind of hairstyle changes that she goes through in the trade paperbacks. Now, Bodie Locke is the youngest of the Locke family. He's, I believe, in like elementary school, and being that he's young, he's kind of mischievous and gets into everything. And that's kind of where the story kind of starts out, because Nina brings the three kids over to live in Key House, and this is a house that, you know, they never really talked about. Dad, Rendell, never really talked about his life and what kind of went on over there. But Bodie kind of explores around the house, this big kind of mansion of a house that's been in the Locke family for generations, and he starts finding these keys and kind of exploring the house and finding out that these keys actually have these magical abilities. The keys do lots of various things. There's actually, I think in the trade paperback, there's about 14 different keys. They don't go through what all of them do, and sometimes actually they have some extra stories from not just the 6 trade paperbacks, but they kind of go beyond that and kind of have some other keys that are explained in some other one-shots. So some of the other characters that you see in season 1, there's a character named Sam Lesser who is a very important character to this whole kind of first season in the story. He's a classmate of Tyler Locke in school and kind of sets things off. One of the other characters is named Dodge, or the Well Lady. You get to see brief glimpses of her within the trailer, but it should be really interesting to see what they do with her and how far they kind of take her in this first season. So we later discover that Rendell actually knew about these keys all along. He kind of has his own secrets, and we find out a little bit more about his backstory with his friends and time in high school with his friends. I feel like it's kind of similar to Stephen King's way of how he wrote It, of where you have the stories of the gang as they were kids, and then you have it 30 years later as the creature known as Pennywise the Clown kind of came back, and the kids, as they're all adults, kind of come back into the town. So they've already showed in the trailer a little bit of what the keys do and some of the keys that are in there. So it'd be really interesting to see. I kind of liked on how they did some of the special effects for some of the keys. Like there's a key called the Ghost Key, of where Bodie is the first one to kind of find that, and you see that in the trailer where he opens the door, and as he walks through the door he turns into a ghost, and where his spirit inside kind of rises up. One of the other keys is called the Head Key, of where in the comics they actually had it of where you would actually insert the key into the back of the neck, and as you turn it, the head kind of opens up. And I was really expecting that for the Netflix series as well, but it looks like they're changing that a little bit. You can see a brief part in the trailer where Kinsley walks into pretty much a room of where it kind of has this whole kind of explanation of where things are in her head and what she's kind of thinking. So the comic series is actually pretty gory and added a lot of suspense. It'll be really interesting to see what Netflix tends to do with this. When I initially saw the trailer back in, I think, November or December, I actually had not heard about Locke and Key at all. I decided to kind of watch it, and I got really interested in it and read the comic book series after that. But in seeing that the comic series had all this kind of gore, and then looking at the trailer and rewatching that, I'm not quite sure if they're trying to do a Stranger Things type thing of where appeal to a younger teen audience or kind of go more towards adults. But I'm interested to see what Netflix attempts to do with this. So that's where I'll leave it. I'm not sure exactly how far into the story that they're going to. From the looks of the trailer, it seems like they're going pretty far into the trade paperback series. Like I said, I would have expected them to go maybe just do trade paperbacks 1 and 2. But it looks like from some of the scenes that they've shown, it actually goes pretty far into it. They've already actually been greenlit for a season 2 and kind of currently writing for that now. But I imagine it to a season 2 for this, kind of to follow the Rendell Locke's history and kind of go back in time and kind of see what Rendell did with his friends back in high school and the events that led up to what is currently going on with the Locke family. Before you leave to watch that trailer, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.